All right, guys. Nice little change of pace. Nothing crazy going on, so we get to do some fun little sillier content. This is an interesting looking video called "The Podcast That Completely Changed Ethan Klein's Life." Now, I know it's the Bill Burr one. So I wonder. I feel like, is that true? You guys think? But we'll see. Let's see what's being said.
On this video, I'm going to be taking a look back at the infamous H3 Bill Burr interview. I'm sure everybody remembers this, but it's interesting to look back on it, knowing where the H3 podcast is at now and the kind of impact this interview had on Ethan. I mean, this was a huge reality check for him. You know, he's going from making videos to podcasting, and he admits it wasn't going as well as he would have liked it to. People didn't think he's the best interviewer, and people thought he should have just stuck to making videos. So it sounded like that was kind of getting to him. And then he did the Bill Burr podcast, and he just cracked under the pressure.
Bill Burr really gave him 1-4. You know, I'll be honest, because what happened was Ethan asked about like a little bit of the guy's personal life a little bit, and he got so offended. Like, Bill was like, "What are you talking about? I don't want to talk about this." And he got like a little. I feel like he got went a little too crazy. But he seemed to be a little. I mean, I'd be upset about that too. You got like a famous celebrity on there busting your balls, but that's like kind of comedians bust balls too. You know, so but whatever.
You know, that was kind of a make or break moment for him because Bill's a pretty big guest for them, and Ethan's a huge fan of his. He keeps talking about how much he loves him and how much he listens to the podcast and everything. So there's a lot of pressure on that.
Maybe that's one of the reasons. Maybe that's what's something that really upset Bill Burr. Because like, I know that sounds weird, but like I hate it when people like basically suck me off and like, "Oh, you're such a good guy." Like it's cool when people are like, "Oh, I like your stuff." Like that's fine, but you know, sometimes when people go too far, it's like, okay, relax, you know. So maybe that's part of it too.
But there's really no chance this was going to go well because Ethan, you know, I think most of the guests they had on the podcast before this, they're kind of friends with, or they're like YouTubers they interacted with. But with Bill, I think this was their first time meeting each other, and I don't think Bill had any idea who Ethan was.
Yeah, and it's Ethan's, I think, probably his first shot like at being actually mainstream and talking to like a mainstream person more than anything else. So isn't that weird? Like, world, it's so interesting. Even when you're super popular online, you're still a fucking nobody. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But Bill Burr is like the first mainstream person.
And he's obviously not the easiest person to interview, especially if you're a nervous wreck like Ethan and you talk about how nervous you are. It's probably not going to end up going well.
You know what I mean? If you went to whatever Comic-Con of podcasting, would you be nervous?
Yes.
All right. Well, you're
talking to a nervous guy.
I'm so neurotic. I'm nervous. I'm nervous right now.
Okay.
Very nervous.
I don't think that's going to help.
How do you? Was there ever? No, trust me. I'm on edge. Was there a point?
You seem relaxed.
Thank you. God, okay, keep it together.
So this podcast was just set up to be a disaster. You know, Ethan was way in over his head here, and some of his fans could even see this coming. Like, here's a comment on his subreddit about it before the interview. They said,
"I'm worried for Ethan." Oh, he's an.
I'm honestly kind of worried for Ethan's sake, since Bill's an actual comedian and he doesn't pull his punches. Like, I could see Bill make 1 or 2 jokes towards Ethan, and then Ethan not knowing how to handle them. But at least Ethan isn't the only one that had an awkward podcast with Bill Burr. Obviously, Theo Vaughn did as well.
I mean, I feel like most people would have an awkward podcast with Bill Burr. It's fucking Bill Burr, dude. You know.
They both actually talked about it on Theo's podcast, and Ethan admitted that this Bill Burr interview was a life-changing moment for him.
Yeah, we're talking about, welcome to the Bill Burr recovery.
How old is this?
And admitted that.
Oh, this is from 3 years ago. I didn't know he thought the Theo Vaughn 3 years ago. It's crazy.
This Bill Burr interview was a life-changing moment for him.
Yeah, we're talking about, welcome to the Bill Burr recovery group.
Yeah, I went into therapy after that episode. I'm not even being kidding.
What?
I mean, I was having a depressive episode for a long time.
Jesus.
And I had these antidepressants next to my bed for a long time. And
you were taking them?
No, I hadn't decided to take them yet. I was hesitant.
Yeah.
And after that episode with Bill Burr, I came home, and that's when I started taking antidepressants, and I went to therapy.
Wow. Jesus Christ. I mean, not trying to be rude. That's a little. I know this can come off as rude, and you can think I'm making. That sounds a little weak. But I guess it makes sense if you already have like 100 other pressures that mounting on you as a content creator or whatever. And then boom, you talk to Bill Burr and he scares your giblets off. I guess that would push me over the edge too, I suppose. But that's crazy.
Wow. It was a little crushing. My fans were, I don't know, but the audience were very harsh.
This picture of Bill Costanza looks like kind of like me right now, except I'm not in blue and I don't have my bald head out. Not bad. Like my brother, but he's skinnier. Isn't that crazy?
Interview where I felt like a
so fat.
failure, it was just off. It wasn't, it didn't feel that bad, but it was the reaction, the audience reaction to it afterwards. I mean, I knew I had goofed up and that it was not the best interview. And I was such a big fan of Bill Burr, obviously.
People are so mean. Hashtag cancel culture. Am I right? All right, guys.
He's a legend. And you just, in your mind, have high hopes that you'll be able to. That just felt, it felt like a rock bottom for me, because I was having a hard time with the podcast and interviews in general, and that for me was just kind of like the culmination of a lot of stress.
So I think there's just too much pressure on this interview, because also around this time he was getting some shit from his fans because he stopped posting on his main channel. He took like a 3-month break, and then he returned with an ad for some mobile game. That was like the whole video, and his fans were upset about that because a lot of people were just fans of his main channel videos and they didn't really care for the podcast. And even Ethan said he was struggling with the podcast. So then when Bill Burr agrees to do an interview, he's probably like, all right, this is where I'm gonna turn things around. This is a big time guest for him, and Ethan's a big fan of his, so he's probably thinking like, oh, I listen to this guy's podcast all the time, I understand his style of humor, he's gonna come in here, we're gonna have a good time and laugh together. But instead, it just did not go very well, to say the least. And a lot of his fans are like, all right, this guy is a terrible interviewer, and it just broke Ethan.
I'm really struggling staying with the podcast. We all knew that Ethan wasn't great, but okay, yeah, that's a little. I mean, like, people make mistakes. You got to get used to doing shit like that. People probably, honestly, like, this is the problem with the internet too, is that like people have such disproportionate responses. This guy, I'm a longtime viewer of Ethan, but we all knew Ethan wasn't a great podcast interviewer. But today is horrible. Bill's realness really contrasts Ethan's wacky performance. I like how he doesn't run with Ethan's brain. Farts. Hila does a great job as always. The mediator, or am I just overreacting? Definitely overreacting. Like it's almost annoying. Some people will like weigh in and say like the most toxic, obnoxious fucking way. Like if you were in person, you wouldn't say things like that to him. Like it's just so weird, and that like rawness can really kind of fuck a person up and make them feel like a real piece of shit asshole. Just kind of like how this healer is not healing very well. He's a real piece of shit asshole too. People need time, and especially that was probably his transition period from making like long form content to shorter form content. Like he's just getting fucking destroyed by everybody. It's wild.
Ethan, but it sounded like
greetings from sunny South Africa. What's up, brother?
Because he says going to therapy and taking antidepressants is like one of those things that happened to him.
So in hindsight, though, does it almost feel like it was supposed to happen? Like it was like, oh, I needed something that kind of made me look at stuff,
and just gave me
like a moment to reflect.
Well, I definitely needed something to push me, because taking antidepressants, going to therapy was like the best choice I ever made for me and my family, and professionally too. I mean, it's made everything better.
Really?
So I mean, if it wasn't that,
it's wild how I'm not getting any heals right now.
But that was like a little bit. Somehow it was part of a catalyst. It was a fuse light.
Yeah. It was that.
And then also Ethan talked a little bit about why it's so difficult to interview Bill Burr.
He is unlike anyone else I've ever interviewed because he's not willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? And he will expose any chinks in your armor.
Yeah.
Oh, racist, am I right?
Right.
And
for
he's
him,
going to make
comedy,
a funny moment out of it.
Right.
But for me, I'm like, oh shit, dude, my fragile ego.
So I feel like at the time, his fans that weren't really into the podcast were probably waiting for something like this to happen, waiting for Ethan to be humbled, because a lot of them were saying Ethan's not very good at interviewing, and they didn't think him and Hila were good in a podcast format, and it was stupid for them to be choosing podcasting over videos, YouTube videos, like what made them. So I think fans were waiting to be like, this is why you should stick to YouTube videos. You guys just aren't cut out for podcasts. And the Bill Burr interview is a perfect example of this. And also, this is probably one of the first guests that Ethan had on who doesn't really care who he is. He's just there. He doesn't care about making Ethan comfortable. He's not going to make it easy for him. If Ethan screws up, he's going to make fun of him. So a lot of people wanted to see how Ethan would react to that. And obviously he didn't react very well. But it's funny because in the beginning of this podcast, Ethan brings up how he thinks bullies are important. Like, it's not good to just coddle children all the time. Sometimes it's good to have some adversity.
You can go on YouTube and the next thing you know, the bully's crying for some reason. Like, I never understood that.
Do you think, I feel like bully's almost important in a way, isn't it? Like, you got to allow kids to give each other shit, in a sense. I mean, you can't coddle kids too much.
I don't think as a parent you ever allow it.
Sure.
It's something though, but I mean, I know that there's like I have a daughter and I want her to take some MMA.
So it's just perfect that he says this at the beginning of the podcast, and then he gets made fun of a little bit, and it completely destroys him and makes him realize he needs to go on antidepressants and go to therapy, which I guess bullying did work in a way because he said that needed to happen, and it's like one of the best things to happen to him. So I guess he's kind of right here. I don't know, but obviously he wouldn't be saying this anymore. This is more of an anti-SJW take.
No, he wouldn't be saying that anymore. Because it is stupid in general. Like, I understand what he means. Like, but bullying is different from kids giving each other shit. You don't need bullying for kids to give each other shit, but I know what he's saying.
And I'm sure this interview is part of the reason why he started to shift his content away from anti-SJW content. He used to talk about people are too soft and too sensitive and everything. And he had more edgy shock humor, like his classic N-word bit. So he did not care about offending people. I mean, that was like part of his comedy. But then he got offended. People made fun of him a little bit and he couldn't take it. So then he had to rethink everything pretty much. All right, so let's get back to the interview here. This is a good example of what was wrong with this podcast, like why Ethan did such a bad job. Because Bill's making a joke about how his daughter's taking MMA and how if some guy ever tried to mess with her, she'd break his arm. He's like, damn, that's an erection killer right there. And he's laughing at it. Hila's laughing. It's a funny joke. And Ethan's just sitting there like, what's the next question? Which
you could break my erection. That would kill my erection, but in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Because I come so hard from such a strong woman. I'm just kidding. That's interesting, though. I'd fuck around with a girl. Well, I'm married, but you got to give it all a chance. Got to give it all a chance.
And then he asked something, and Bill's just like, "What are you talking about, dude?"
A guy's gonna try to gorilla his way in and try to hold you down or whatever, and then all of a sudden he's tapping out. You blow out his elbow, and that's an erection killer right there, man. You blow out the elbow. I think that's slang for the armbar. I think it's called the erection killer.
Blow out the old. See, that's part of. I feel like that's a new thing. You're already worried about your daughter being assaulted,
What the fuck? I think he was just making a joke. What the fuck? Ethan's taking it a little too seriously. I think he was just making a joke about how his daughter's does MMA, and he's like, it's so interesting. You're already worried about your daughter getting raped. I mean, maybe he is. I don't know, but I feel like that might be a little bit. I think he might be taking it a little too seriously.
How old's your daughter?
I don't think that is. I think that's you projecting your OCD on me.
It's, you're talking about, you want your 2-year-old daughter to get Krav Maga so she can knife a dude's neck.
Well, she's 2 years old.
Yeah, but I mean, that's like, it's not like, that didn't, it was not like the assault started in 2014. I mean, like stuff like that has always happened.
Damn, I thought that she was grown at this point. That makes me look like a weirdo. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory.
And then also, gives you like confidence.
So you could tell he just got in his own head. This is like still in the beginning, and he already said a couple things that Bill didn't fully agree with.
I think it was just like an uncomfortable thing to say, like, "Oh, you're worried about your 4-year-old daughter getting raped," and it's like, I guess so. I guess that was kind of the point, but it didn't need to be so explicitly stated. That's probably more where Bill Burr was coming from. I think that Ethan was just trying to look to respond to what he was saying. I think Ethan was just nervous and he wanted to respond, but didn't know what to say, and didn't have any witty jokes to make back because Ethan's not funny. Least funny Jewish person in my opinion. Jews are supposed to be funny, guys. That's the problem. A little bit of a joke there. Anyway, I think that's what happened.
With him on like the whole bullying thing, and then this thing about his daughter taking the class and like why she's doing it and everything. So that definitely threw him off. And then he was also like making jokes, and Bill would not laugh at him at all. It was hilarious because Hila was laughing at everything Bill said. Like she was looking at him like she was in love with him. And then whenever Ethan would chime in, it'd just be silent.
Well, yeah, but it's also a different role. Hila's there is just kind of chilling. She doesn't have. There's no expectation of her like responding necessarily. Like she gets to speak. If this is even true, people also like to like apply whatever they want to feel onto things. So part of that could just be like fucking Hila's like, oh, she's in her comfortable role. She gets to speak when she feels like speaking. But Ethan's kind of in the spot where like he has to respond. He needs to say something in response, or else the interview goes nowhere, kind of a thing.
I had a great time. I had a great time doing that.
I need to get a shirt that says "I bought this dog."
What?
Yeah.
And also, Bill called Ethan out for being like really negative the whole podcast. And I think Ethan figured Bill would be into that kind of thing. Like Bill's always just ranting about stuff he hates. But him and Ethan just had no chemistry. And Ethan was even too negative for Bill. Like they're talking about this dog whisperer show. And Ethan's like, does that guy actually know what he's doing? And Bill's like, yeah, I think so. I mean, he's been doing it forever and it seems to be working.
It's just like, no, this guy's been working with dogs forever.
Does he even know anything? I also wonder, does he just pretend like he knows and then we believe him? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, you're right.
I mean, he's doing this. I mean, what does that do?
Well,
I think that apparently it doesn't. Apparently, people say this, and I could just be completely wrong, and everybody likes to cry and be ridiculous. Damn, I almost said the worst word in the whole world. I've really been doing a good job getting it out of my vocabulary, bro. But sometimes it still comes to my head, especially when I'm playing World of Warcraft, bro. I'm so ashamed of myself right now, like unironically. Okay, sorry. Let me get my shit together. Anyway. A lot of people have been saying that Jesus Christ. A lot of people have been saying that like Cesar Millan is not very effective when it comes to actually doing this shit, and most of it's all bullshit, just confident bullshit. Papa say, that's what I'm saying, bro. That's what I'm saying, guys. You gotta get it out of your vernacular. Okay? I gotta catch myself well. I've been trying. I really have been. I haven't been saying it. Like, but sometimes it still comes there. My edgy gamer days are like so real. It's fucking crazy. Warp your mind, makes you fucking shit and cum,
I think the guy knows what he's doing.
Okay.
Right. He got a TV show. There's people. He worked with a lot of famous people's dogs. No famous people got eaten by dogs. So I would say, on some level, he must know. Yeah. You're a really cynical guy, man.
I thought you were down. I thought you were going to be down.
That is a lot for me to say that.
I thought
you're
you were
like
going to be down, but
cynical
apparently I'm cynical even to Bill Burr. Shit. But you know what? You're not as cynical as people think. Like, I listen to your podcast a lot, and you're a very optimistic, fair guy.
And also, Ethan keeps talking about...
You think Ethan stopped watching his podcast after that? I think it scarred him so horribly he stopped watching it?
How much he listens to Bill's podcast and how great it is and how great Bill is and everything.
Greatest Bill Burr.
Oh,
I do mean that, by the way. I know it makes you uncomfortable.
It does. Yeah. One great was bad enough.
Does it? But you know that.
I like being appreciated.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Say,
Tone it
back
down.
with the person I appreciate.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Back with the
He's
person.
worth the money.
Okay.
And by this point, Bill could tell Ethan was struggling, so he was just having fun with it, and he was not giving him any slack. You know, if Ethan screwed up, he would call him out for it.
Oh, it seems like you're in love with your daughter, hearing you talk about her on the podcast.
Fuck.
Right, well, you're pretty perceptive. It's like you care about your own child.
Listen, more than that, okay? Because again, you're this character. You gush over your daughter. Not everyone gushes. Did your dad gush over you?
And also a big problem with Ethan
Fuck, I
is
didn't mean to do
he's
that.
treating this too much of like just a straight interview, which he's not very good at. Like this comment says, this feels like a child asking someone questions on career day. And, you know, I don't think Bill really cares for this either. You know, I think he'd rather just rant about whatever or just like goof
I also don't think that Bill gave that much of a fuck about the podcast going good or bad necessarily. I think for the most part, Bill just didn't give a shit. I think they were like assigning this. Bill's probably busting his chops, like, "Oh, it was a little awkward," and he like kind of doesn't think about it anymore. And we're making it seem like it's such a huge fucking deal that was like almost a relationship ruining or fucking career ruining for Ethan when it probably was a big nothing. You know?
around with somebody.
All right.
How the fuck do we not have a healer
I don't know
yet?
why that's kind of so flat on my part. Tell me about all things comedy. I don't know. You see, I'm nervous. I'm sweating here.
I'm just going to let you sit.
I know you are. You don't have to save me.
You got to push through to the other side.
No, I know, but you don't have to
great.
save
Look
me.
at you. You're all sweaty. You're touching. Like, dude, if you were a reliever,
You okay?
if you were a reliever on the other team, I'd have to come out and check you for Vaseline or something. You touched your hair and your grill a little too many times. He's doctoring the ball.
And then towards the end of this, Ethan starts pulling up YouTube videos that he thinks Bill will find funny. And Bill
That's
a couple
awkward.
of them. But then he's like, all right, dude, you're just into some weird stuff. So Ethan turns it off. And then he starts talking about the Philadelphia incident, which Bill does not want to hear about. He's like, really, you're going to go into this now? And like Bill's probably like half joking, but Ethan, he's just taking everything so personal. He can't even handle it at this point. Like, it'd be good if he's gotten like some back and forth going, like if he made fun of Bill a little bit, but he just has nothing.
Just keep petting her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is creepy, dude. You watch creepy shit.
Well, this is good stuff. I mean, you know.
That's stuff that we've made videos about.
Good
That's
care.
our-
So I mean, you're very protective of your hair.
What else is going on in the world? I want to ask you about this. This is one of the first times I heard about you. I was in college, I think, at the time. It was when you were getting booed by
Fuck.
thousands of people
I was
in
hoping
Philly.
you were. I was like, when you said my favorite
don't-
YouTube video, I was like, oh God, not the Philly thing again. And then you did the Sherry's Berries. I was like, I love this podcast. Now I hate you.
Oh no.
I love. What can I do? I love that.
I'm joking. Go ahead, let's do it.
But do you?
Well,
But,
go
but,
bring ahead.
no, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna ask you.
You've been moved before.
You've talked about this a lot.
No, but go ahead. Let's do it.
Well,
Let's
now
do it.
I
We can
frankly,
skip
I like
it.
making you.
I would
I
like
like
to
making you.
skip it.
I like making you uncomfortable.
Well,
You
what
do
am I
this
supposed
thing.
to? Well, what am I? Yeah, right.
You know, you could-
And now, what do you want me to be? Well, what was going through your head, Bill, when you're getting booed by all those people?
I don't know. I don't remember. It was.
What was
long.
going through your head? No, I'm kidding.
This is
Let's
going to
skip
end
it.
up on
Let's skip
YouTube.
it. Yeah. This is live.
This is going to end up on YouTube. Is what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
And
So they talk about that a little bit. Ethan tries pulling up the video and he plays it for like 5 seconds. He's like, never mind. We get the point here because you could tell Bill wasn't really that into it. And then this is how the podcast wrapped up, and this is pretty much the end.
The great.
this is how you turn it around. This is how you turn it around.
We're
I
all-
made you uncomfortable. Now you fucking sit here and compliment me.
I almost made it through. So.
It sounds like it didn't really go as badly as everybody likes to say. I feel like everybody says it went so much worse than it actually did. It just sounded like kind of like it was just like a little rough. It wasn't like that bad though.
To myself. I got so close.
What are you talking about? I had a great time.
I did too. I really did.
I hope you did. I'm worried about you.
I
You-
did.
Thank God you got.
I'm playing it
Wait.
up. I'm playing it up.
All right.
But I'm
That-
trying to be funny, but
We are all worried about him.
oh my god. Now it got real.
It's very.
We have that dog,
very
man. You got
neurotic.
something to live for, right?
So that was pretty much it. And Bill actually did go back on the podcast.
Oh my God,
and
what an
Ethan said
idiot.
Bill reached out to him. He wanted to do it again. So, you know, Ethan kind of did redeem himself. The podcast was a lot better. And it seemed like Bill didn't mind the first one that much. I mean, he probably
Okay.
just thought the whole thing was funny. He probably didn't care. But this obviously had a huge impact on Ethan. And it's hilarious. Like, Bill didn't even know who he was. This was like nothing to him. He goes in there, talks for an hour, leaves. He's like, oh, that guy was kind of weird. And then Ethan, this was like just a earth-shattering moment for him. He didn't know what to do
Yeah,
after this.
yeah, that
All right,
makes
so that's
sense.
about it here. here. If you like this video, make sure you go check out my Patreon. I have a bunch of videos like this. You know, I have one about Bill Burr and Brian Redband fighting on the Joe Rogan Experience. And also there's another video about this weird argument that Joe and Amy Schumer had in his last podcast she was on, and that might have been the reason why. But then at the end of it, they did some weird baby talk thing to make up. So if you want to see any of that, make sure you go check it out. And then make sure to leave me a comment here. Let me know what you think about all this. Then hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you at the next video.
Okay, interesting video.